She was in a body bag. It was zipped up to her chin.
What began as a late-night emergency call quickly unraveled into one of the most disturbing true crime cases involving a child offender. At first, it appeared to be a tragic accident involving a young girl and her older brother. The voice on the phone sounded calm, controlled, and cooperative, giving no hint of panic or fear. But investigators soon realized that this calmness was not shock, it was calculation. At only 13 years old, a boy believed his intelligence and age would shield him from consequences. What followed exposed a chilling reality about how violence, manipulation, and emotional emptiness can hide in plain sight. This is the haunting case of Ella Bennett, a family trying to start over. Charity Bennett had spent much of her life trying to escape a past shaped by trauma and instability. Her own childhood was marked by emotional pain, including the violent death of her father, an event that left deep psychological scars. Determined to create a safer and more loving environment for her children, Charity worked tirelessly as a single mother, often taking long shifts to support her family. Her son Paris appeared to be everything she hoped for: intelligent, polite, and remarkably mature for his age. Teachers praised his academic abilities, and adults often described him as calm and responsible. When Ella was born, Charity believed her family had finally found happiness. Paris seemed proud to be a big brother, helping with Ella's care and showing affection that reassured everyone around him. From the outside, the family appeared stable, loving, and safe. The trust that turned deadly. Ella Bennett was a joyful, trusting 4-year-old who looked up to her older brother with complete confidence. Paris knew her routines, her habits, and how to gain her trust without resistance. That trust would later become the most devastating aspect of the crime. On February 4, 2007, Charity left for work on Super Bowl Sunday, confident her children were safe under the supervision of a babysitter. As the evening progressed, Paris calmly convinced the babysitter that their mother would be home soon and that he was old enough to watch Ella alone. His tone was confident and believable. Trusting his words, the babysitter left, unknowingly placing Ella alone with someone who had already decided her fate. The 911 call that changed everything. Late that night, emergency dispatchers received a call from Paris Bennett reporting that his sister was bleeding and unresponsive. His voice was eerily calm, lacking the urgency expected from a frightened child. When instructed to perform CPR, Paris hesitated and claimed it was already too late. Even as the dispatcher pleaded with him to try, his responses remained detached. When paramedics arrived, they immediately noticed that no CPR had been attempted. Ella had suffered fatal stab wounds, and the scene showed no signs of forced entry or struggle with an outsider. It became clear that the danger had come from inside the home, not from an unknown intruder. A mother returns to a nightmare. Police contacted Charity at work and urged her to come home immediately without explaining the full situation. When she arrived, flashing lights filled her street as neighbors watched in silence. The moment she saw police tape surrounding her home, she knew something was terribly wrong. Officers soon confirmed the unimaginable. Ella was dead. Charity collapsed under the weight of the news, her world shattered in an instant. At that moment, she believed both of her children were victims of a horrible tragedy. She had no idea that the truth waiting behind closed doors would be far more devastating than she could ever imagine. Red flags investigators couldn't ignore. At the police station, investigators observed Paris closely. While his mother cried uncontrollably, Paris remained emotionally distant. He did not ask questions about Ella or express visible grief. When Charity hugged him, he did not return the embrace. His behavior raised immediate concern. As questioning continued, inconsistencies emerged in his account of events. His tone shifted from cooperative to irritated, and at times he appeared smug rather than frightened. Detectives began to realize that Paris was not overwhelmed by shock. He was controlling the situation. The calm exterior he had maintained was starting to crack. A confession without remorse. Eventually, Paris admitted that he had intentionally killed his sister, And what shocked investigators most was not just the confession itself, but the way it was delivered. There was no visible emotion, no hesitation, and no sign of regret. Psychological evaluations later revealed traits consistent with sociopathy, including a lack of empathy, emotional detachment, and an inability to feel guilt. Experts confirmed that Paris fully understood the difference between right and wrong and was aware of the seriousness of his actions. What deeply disturbed investigators was his belief that he would escape punishment. He assumed his intelligence, young age, and calm demeanor would protect him from consequences. To Paris, the murder was not an emotional act. It was something closer to a failed experiment, a family history repeating itself. As investigators looked deeper into Charity Bennett's past, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Years earlier, Charity's own father had been murdered under circumstances that were never fully resolved. Although no one was convicted, the trauma of that loss deeply affected her childhood and emotional development. Growing up surrounded by unanswered questions and grief left lasting scars. Now, history had repeated itself in an even more horrifying way. Charity had once again lost a loved one to murder, this time her own daughter, killed by her son. The realization that violence had followed her family across generations was overwhelming. Charity struggled with intense guilt, questioning whether her past trauma had unknowingly shaped the tragedy that unfolded in her home. The trial and an unimaginable position. Paris Bennett was charged with capital murder in juvenile court. Because of his age, the death penalty was not an option, but the charges still carried severe consequences. Charity found herself in an unimaginable position. She was both the grieving mother of a murdered child and the mother of the person responsible. Despite her heartbreak, she refused to deny Paris's guilt or protect him from accountability. Charity believed that justice for Ella mattered more than denial or excuses. In August 2007, Paris pleaded guilty to the charges. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison, the maximum punishment allowed for a juvenile offender at the time. The sentence reflected both the severity of the crime and the limitations of juvenile law. Life after the verdict. The court's decision did not bring closure for Charity Bennett. Instead, her life became defined by two separate forms of grief: mourning Ella's death while emotionally losing Paris to prison. Charity maintained limited contact with her son, describing the experience as living with constant emotional conflict. Determined to ensure Ella's life was not forgotten, Charity founded the Ella Foundation, an organization dedicated to raising awareness about childhood mental illness and the importance of early intervention. She began sharing her story publicly, hoping to educate parents and professionals about warning signs often overlooked. Through advocacy and education, Charity transformed unimaginable pain into purpose, turning Ella's short life into a lasting symbol of prevention, awareness, and the urgent need to protect vulnerable children. OUTRO. The case of Ella Bennett challenges the belief that danger always looks obvious. It reminds us that violence can exist behind intelligence, politeness, and trust. Ella never had the chance to protect herself, but her story continues to serve as a warning to parents, educators, and society as a whole. Remembering her means listening closely, asking difficult questions, and acting before it is too late. Because sometimes the most dangerous threats are the ones hiding right in front of us.